Shepard, we have got, when I say epic, today's show is likely to be historic. You and I might be put on some sort of like suicide watch list or involuntary suicide watch list. Hopefully not. But how are you doing today, Shepard?
Pretty good, man. Just dealing with typical old targeting.
Exactly. We both had a little mini emergency, so apologies to everybody for the slightly late start. Shepard, I don't know if you've met our very special guest today. I'm so excited to have this guy join us again. We're going to be speaking with Luke Slytalker. He is a guy who is an expert in IT security and all kinds of, well, why don't we have him explain? Luke, how you doing?
I'm good. How about you guys?
I'm doing great.
Really
nice to have you, Luke.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm call it jack of all trades of nerd work. So mostly interested in, I think, in digital forensics, specifically in the realm of photography or images.
Right.
Oh, wow.
And
awesome.
people who've been watching Crowdsource the Truth for a long time are going to remember that Luke was the guy who helped me identify evidence in the photographs published in the New York Post when Ghislaine Maxwell was spotted at the In-N-Out Burger. You remember that, Shepard, right? We had this photo.
Somewhat. It's like a lot of stuff is a blur to me for some reason anymore. I don't know if it's just because I've done this so long or something, but like I vaguely remember that.
And it was 5 years ago. I think
exactly.
that was 2019. So that's a long time in the realm of the internet.
Absolutely. And basically what was happening there is Ghislaine Maxwell was, it was published in the New York Post that she went out to the In-N-Out Burger restaurant. And the thing that's crazy is that thing was like 2 blocks from my old house in LA. So I became really interested in the story. And it did seem obvious that there was some kind of something going on as far as photo manipulation. And one thing I want to help everybody understand is that we're going to be getting into some forensic tools that help us analyze photos. You know, Shepard, there's a lot of people who have used these tools where you just sort of plug some photo into some website and it says, is this AI or not AI? And before we get into everything we're going to be dealing with today, I want to help everybody understand how some of these tools work and what some of the capabilities and limitations are, because this stuff, it's not magic, and it's only one component that we're going to use in an investigation to try to determine if the photos that we're talking about are legitimate or not. And just to give everybody the overall of what we're talking about, you and I, Shepard, have been talking about this Rodney Jones versus Sean Combs, Lil Rod versus P. Diddy lawsuit for like months already. And it seems like only last week that everybody caught on. I see so many people on the news and on other podcasts who are basically just kind of reading the New York Post and sort of doing guess-based journalism. But you and I, we've been looking at the docket since the day, I forget how I even came across this lawsuit, but I got to it from Pacer. And Shepard, I'm sure I told you this, but there's something really weird has happened this past week. I have inadvertently sort of become evidence in this case. Let's just go to the docket for a second. This was filed by the lawyers for P. Diddy. Exhibit 4 in their latest filing is a screen capture of Tyrone Blackburn's Twitter account. Tyrone Blackburn, of course, is a lawyer who's representing Lil Rod. He's done a great job. Initially we had some questions because this sort of came in there in a rush and there were some procedural errors, but we've spoken a lot about how it's complicated stuff, and that happens even with some of the biggest law firms. But I've been on this sort of tear, putting out these Where's Diddy images and everything. And I put up this tweet because people were speculating that this is somehow, Diddy's gonna rat people out, or that this was somebody trying to get revenge on Diddy for suing Diageo Liquor. I don't think any of that at all is true. What seems to be happening, Shepard, is that Lil Rod was a producer on the Love album. He was subjected to all kinds of weird stuff. And he decided to file a lawsuit. And one of the elements of evidence in the lawsuit was this photograph of Brendan Paul holding 2 prescription pill bottles and a fanny pack that Lil Rod alleges is always filled with ketamine, ecstasy, cocaine, GHB, etc. And I am surmising that based on the direct evidence in this lawsuit, that photograph, I believe they got an arrest warrant for Brendan Paul and a search warrant for P. Diddy and his house and his electronics, because they didn't have this kind of direct evidence against P. Diddy. They had allegations against P. Diddy. And remember, the FBI, the DHS investigation people, they don't, well, legally, they're not supposed to just come bust your door in. They have to go talk to a judge and present evidence to get a search warrant. So I believe they had adequate evidence to arrest Brendan Paul, and they only had sufficient evidence to get this search warrant. But what's going to happen in the next days and weeks is that the evidence obtained from the search is very likely going to result in the arrest of Sean Combs. And we were talking before, Luke and I were talking, and you and I have spoken about this as well. Why was it the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security investigations, and not the FBI that did this raid? And a lot of people have speculated, well, it's because it's human trafficking and it's international, but that's the same as Jeffrey Epstein, and somehow the FBI and the local police were the ones that investigated Epstein. There's got to be a reason. And I believe that reason, Shepard, is that Lil Rod and his attorney very probably know that P. Diddy might be, we're speculating now, he might be involved in a very high-level government operation that would be protected by the FBI. And perhaps they had some angle going to DHS investigations that allowed them to avoid the FBI basically, you know, we know what happened when they tried to investigate Jeffrey Epstein, right? The FBI just destroyed all the evidence, didn't they, Shep?
Yeah, it also, you know, we were talking about the lookalike or the potential that he's running a lookalike. I also have a theory that potentially they actually took him into custody, and it's either DHS or the FBI that's running the lookalike to make it appear as if he's still on the street, so his contacts will still call him or something like that. You know what I mean? Like he didn't.
I do,
but
yeah.
because I find it like hard to believe that they wouldn't know that that's really not Puff Daddy, when like I can just look at that guy and tell it's not him.
What we're going to do today is we're going to approach this from a couple different angles. I want you to get into this stuff about the doubles, because you have identified certain lyrics in various hip hop songs where people are talking about having doubles. We know they've used, Lyndon Johnson had a body double. We've seen pictures of Zelensky with a guy who looks just like him. It's not absurd to think.
Or Biden, there's like 5 different Bidens now.
A lot of people speculate. And by the way, if you were a super billionaire and you had all this outrageous security, why wouldn't you have a double? We even saw a news report from the local news there in Miami on the day that his house was raided. The reporter said, like 5 different, Bentley went this way, Mercedes went that way, and the reporter said it appears to be a distraction. They had umbrellas going up, couldn't tell who was going in and out.
I think there was 2 planes going on, and Puffy was on one plane, and supposedly he wasn't on the other plane. But, you know, that's starting to make me wonder, you know, about this. But also, you know, it'd be interesting to go back. There was some interviews that Puff Daddy did, or at least, and some photo shoots in the last 5 months. And I kind of did this, but then I got distracted. But it would be interesting to see when they started running the clone. If they started running the clone earlier, then you know it's Puff Daddy running the clone. If you know, to like work them into footage and photos, right? And then if they started running them just as the day of arrest, I would suspect that literally they apprehended Puff Daddy and they're running a clone. For whatever reason, they think they can't tell the public that, or they need people to come forward. I heard like Jay-Z and Beyonce are now like falling into this, J-Lo. There's all sorts of, you know, people coming into this web of entanglement.
let's be precise, because when we say clone, you're talking about a genetic clone. What we're describing is if you were going to do a
I'm
movie,
just using that as a generic term.
but let's not use that. Hang on a second.
Right.
Let's not use that. Let's say you want to make a
double,
movie.
a stunt double,
right.
basically.
Exactly.
Crash test dummy.
Or just somebody who kind of looks like him, who can put on sunglasses and a hat, and you're like, is that Diddy? Is it not Diddy? And, you know, the thing is, there were these photos that came up where they said, oh, Diddy is over there at Top Golf, right? And the thing is, we're going to examine those photos. Luke has prepared a forensic analysis of the photos, and we're going to look at that. But see, there's a couple different ways I went about this. First of all, let's talk about a logical examination of this. So this is just the other day that Diddy is spotted at Top Golf. And all we have is this one paparazzo taking 2 or 3 pictures. Now, do you really think P. Diddy, who is an A-list celebrity who's recognized all over the place, and right now this is the biggest thing that's ever happened to him, he's going to go into a public place in Miami and no one is taking a picture with their iPhone? How did that happen?
Shouldn't there be lots of people? Mad. Well, I think that he would be somewhat like a little bit mad. I mean, unless they try to act like in the press, like he's playing it off like, oh, nothing's happening. But I've seen Puff Daddy, even in recent months, he got filmed with his shirt off recently and was kind of like, yo. And it's also making me wonder, like, how far did they take this body double? Like, did they get a guy like 5-10 months ago and they start tattooing him up just like Puff Daddy? I mean, you got to think, because reason being is I say this because I knew this was all coming years ago. I don't know if I was telling you this because like ever since I found out like how tied in Puff Daddy is to Tupac's murder, then I realized they're going to at one point like basically raid Puff Daddy. Like I was basically like waiting for this. And so I think that he would know something's coming and would try and, make up his body double a little bit better even.
I really want to avoid speculating because we've got so much evidence in the lawsuit and in these videos. It's definitely possible that, and likely, I would say, that a body double is being used. We've got this video of him at the airport, which I think is authentic, and I don't agree that he knew this was coming. I think he thinks he's super protected. There's a lot of evidence, and people have said for years, and you know all about this, people in the hip-hop world for years have said that Diddy is a Fed, that Diddy has these crazy parties. We've seen videos of him trying to put his hands on Mike Tyson, and 50 Cent has all kinds of beef with Diddy. So here's video of Brendan Paul getting arrested. So, I mean, this was also amazing because, people are saying, oh, what was Diddy's crime? They think he didn't do anything. The lawyers for P. Diddy were putting in all kinds of challenges to Lil Rod's lawyer. We had no activity on the docket for about 3 weeks. That was very confusing and probably part of the reason that people weren't looking at this. A lot of people speculated that this might have just been, allegations that were not substantiated. And the day the lawyers appeared for Diddy and entered a motion to dismiss, they said basically all of these allegations are nonsense, completely baseless, throw this out. We want to file a motion for Rule 11 sanctions against Tyrone Blackburn for entering this nonsense. And the morning of that, this happened, and Brendan Paul was arrested. So in what can only be described as a baller move, Tyrone Blackburn that afternoon filed a motion saying obviously these allegations are not false. Brendan Paul has been arrested, Sean Combs' house has been searched, and Lil Rod and his attorney were granted permission by the court to amend their complaint. So now we've got lawyers for P. Diddy and all the record companies scrambling and going crazy, and I believe what we've seen in terms of these videos, there was a video at Pura Vida that people say, oh, that's proof that Diddy is in Miami, but we don't know that. The Pura Vida Diddy video, it could have been recorded.
To me, it doesn't look like his mannerisms or anything. That guy with the hat on the dock.
Right. Oh, well, that's a different video. We'll look at that as well. But,
just looking at that guy's mannerisms and kind of like the shape of his face or something doesn't look quite right. to me.
It does. That video, I think, feels wrong. It almost feels like the frame rate of Diddy walking was a different frame rate than the video of the scenery. And then
Isn't it
one was
weird?
superimposed over the other, and then it was compressed down to the same, the same frame rate. But
Maybe
to
they
me,
did that to get rid of the metadata or something.
well, it'll create artifacting, and if you watch the video again, it's purposely done in low resolution, but you'll see I don't know what to call it other than like a trail, a ghosting trail that you'll get, especially when filters are applied. You'll kind of see on my hand how it like ghosts in there. You'll see a lot of that as he moves. But again, I'm not saying that it is or it isn't. It looked weird.
Yeah, I felt like that's just not him for some weird reason. Like,
but the one thing I did want to say about the lawsuit or the search warrant or the raid, it was about electronics. So phones, hard drives, and things like that. Something that was interesting was there was the FBI had created an encrypted phone called Anom, ANOM, and it was made right after like the takedown of EncroChat and these other like blacklist burner phones that were basically set up to be unhackable, and they had these different pin combinations where if your phone was taken, you could put in a pin combo and it would wipe the phone. They could
I gotta pause you, Luke.
Wiped. Sorry,
I gotta pause you because remember that Anon program was revealed in court in Canada by Cameron Ordis to be a fake thing created by the FBI. The original one was Phantom Secure, and the FBI alleges that this was created by a guy who was selling it to criminals, but I think this was also created by the FBI.
Yeah.
So the FBI is into lots of tricks and trying to get people these secure phones, but along the lines
basically crime and terrorism doesn't exist and humans are really good people, and then you add the FBI and it just all comes about.
Another one is called EncroChat, and this was specifically done with Blackberries. So that's an interesting one to look at, considering the Obama implications of him, never wanting to be without his BlackBerry, for instance. And that's the same time that, again, EncroChat was a real big deal. But I thought if you look at the Anom stuff, there is a takedown or something that was issued for the Southern District of California. I don't want to get too far
off on that stuff, though. Let's
that video right there that you're showing, Jason. I don't even think that's Puff Daddy, honestly. Well, just listening
let's
to
address
him talk.
that. Let's address that, Shepard. I think if it is or isn't, that doesn't matter. Let's look at the empirical facts. This is not a 4K video out of this guy's phone. Luke is right. This is very compressed, very distressed. Why don't we have a super clear, sharp video? Even if your phone is 8 years old, and these guys are millionaires, they're going to have iPhone 15 Pro, whatever the top 100%. Google phone or whatever. Why is this such a crappy looking video? I haven't seen one high quality version of this video. And again, you're telling me nobody else in this restaurant even sneaks a picture of Diddy or is on Instagram saying, oh, I was in the restaurant last night, I saw Diddy. I just don't believe that these videos were taken at the time that they said they were. Whether it's Diddy or not, there's very suspicious stuff about all of these videos and photos, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like sometimes just tell me that's not Diddy. Just like I've seen so much video of him over the last couple of years, investigating the whole Tupac and all of Gene Deal's allegations and all these other people saying Diddy did this and that like, I just don't believe that's him. For some reason, it's just telling me like, that's not him.
And think about these movies where you've had like, I don't know, Jamie Foxx playing Ray Charles, or there's certain movies where somebody just captures somebody and you're like, whoa. And it could be happening here. The point is, if Diddy wanted to prove that he was in Miami for whatever reason, he could just say, hey, everybody, happy Easter. My lawyers told me not to say anything about the lawsuit, but I'm innocent. And this is all fake. He can repeat what's already publicly in the lawsuit. Why wouldn't he do that? No reason. So we're going to examine these images. And what I want to do first is, Luke has prepared a real kind of like forensic examination of it. But before we get into that, I just want to take a look at some stuff with everybody. Like we have this photo from the other day where, what is her name here? This is Daphne Joy, right? This is a woman who has a kid with 50 Cent who is alleged to be a sex worker in the case. And the thing that's interesting about this photo is that, you see, when you zoom in on it like this, she doesn't look tack sharp, but you can see the individual pixels of the image. We're actually looking at like camera sensor pixels here. This is a very high resolution camera. You know, the paparazzi in Los Angeles are professional photographers. They've got Nikon and Canon professional cameras that take super duper high resolution images. And this is typically what an image coming out of a camera like that will look like. Now, Luke, give us a little bit of an overview, if you could, of the tool that we're going to be looking at when we get over to the sponsor exclusive segment in a few minutes. People are going to be able to join us there by getting onto subscribestar.com/Shep or onto odyssey.com/@crowdsource the truth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsource the truth. What are we going to be looking at on there, Luke?
This is just a tool called Forensically. It's a free tool anyone can use. It's got a bunch of different image analysis tools built into it. So you could almost say that it's like a framework. And you'll use these different tools to kind of look at different parts of the image to determine if there's things pasted over top, or if things have been removed, or if things have been cloned. So these different settings here, and if you leave it on the clone detection one for a little bit, this one takes a little bit to accomplish.
Yeah.
But if you go over and look at like the error level analysis, the one right below it, okay, there you go. This one, obviously, you didn't clone anything on it, looks like, correct?
Let me explain what I've prepared here, because you taught me about this tool, and I looked at this yesterday. I was like, how the hell do I use this? And you just gave me a brief overview, and it makes complete sense to me now. What we're looking at right here is a photograph that I took at Mount Rushmore a few years ago using a camera very similar to the one that was used to photograph Daphne Joy. Now, I loaded a JPEG image in here, and people could see these almost perfect squares around the president's head. And there is no cloning in this. This came right out of the camera, and all I did was make a JPEG. But what's happening is these image areas are sufficiently similar to this over here, so it's fooling the tool into thinking that's a clone. I want to show people a little more about how this works.
What it'll do is it'll draw lines as well between the different pieces or the different chunks. So what you took is such a high-res image that you would have to, okay, yeah, perfect. Here we go. So you can see the lines between now where it's saying this spot was cloned to this spot and that spot was cloned to this spot.
Right.
Perfect.
So what I did is I just copied George Washington over to where Abraham Lincoln was, and now we can see clearly how this tool identifies cloned areas. And cloning areas within an image is a very common photo retouching technique. Another photo retouching technique that is often used is to take someone's face from a completely different photo, like me, and stick it over there where Abraham Lincoln was. And then we're going to ask it, so it's not detecting any cloning, but we can go and, which is the tool that tells me error level? Is that it?
Yeah, do the error level analysis.
Okay. Now this one's a little trickier, and this is also good to see how the tool works and how it can fail. People can see there's a little bit of disruption to the image over here, but it's not immediately obvious what's going on. What I learned just from using this for a short while, Luke, is that as an imaging expert, I've been doing this for, almost 40 years. And so once I understood how this tool worked, I developed my own techniques that allow me to defeat what it is doing to try to detect manipulation. So that's why I wanted to show everybody this, so that people understand this is not magic. This thing is detecting anomalies within images that if someone was trying to really fool you, they could defeat this detection, right?
So go in back over the face area you had, and you'll see some kind of demarcated red areas in here around stuff that it's saying, hey, this is obviously some stuff here. It looks like you've pasted on something that's been compressed a couple of times and then recompressed. So as you kind of go around, you can sort of see how those really intense red areas are. These are the areas that are probably issues. And then if you go back over to the sliders on the tool on the far side, you can adjust them and change the JPEG quality, go down to 80. 80 is pretty common. 75, 80 is common to compress a JPEG too. So yeah, that's fine right there for now. And then change the error scale, bring it up somewhere close to 50.
Ooh. Oh yeah.
And then
So now that really stands out.
Yeah, now it starts to stand out when you can see, okay, yeah, this area looks a little bit fishy. All the other stuff looks pretty similar around each other. But that definitely has some weirdness to it. And then to find the differences, you kind of have to move the sliders and sort of play with it until you either something jumps out at you, or if nothing jumps out at you, then you can probably guess that there must not be anything pasted over and recompressed.
But again, it's not magic, because this
Correct.
area I didn't do anything to, and someone watching right now might say, well, wait a minute, this looks just as identified as Jason's face. So
Yeah.
again, this is a tool that helps us identify photo retouching. It's not necessarily a magic bullet or a catch-all thing that's going to
Correct.
find everything. So what we're going to do oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and you have to play with it. And it takes a lot of time of looking at fake images and then noticing the artifacts that happen, and then looking at images you're not sure about, and then deciding, does this have those similar characteristics? And then taking a guess, basically. It's definitely not a science. It's more of an art form, I guess you could say.
Right. And so this is going to be one element of evidence that's going to be involved in our forensic investigation of these photographs that have been presented of P. Diddy over the past week or so. And so what we're going to do right now, guys, is we are going to make our way over to the sponsor exclusive segment. People are going to be able to join us for that. That's going to be the deep dive into the digital forensics on these images, more discussions about videos. Shepard's going to talk to us about some of the hip-hop history of guys talking about using body doubles, basically saying that they're using body doubles. People can join us in 5 minutes on subscribestar.com/Shep or on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Huge thank you to everybody who's supporting the show. And this is an important one, because the FBI UCOs that have been busting my chops for the past 7 years, I'm not saying they work for Diddy, but I think this guy's doing essentially the same thing, allegedly, as Jeffrey Epstein was. So if that's an intelligence operation, there are people who are out there trying to get people like us to not show you things like this. So we got to do it on these platforms that are more difficult for them to destroy. And, everybody knows this. If you are watching some news that is sponsored by some kind of corporate sponsor, whether it's YouTube or television or whatever, that news is going to have the corporate sponsor's interests at heart. With you guys as the direct sponsors of this show, we don't have any corporate sponsorship. So that's the way it works, and we really need your support and sponsorship. We'll be right back in 5 minutes. Stay with